Jennifer, the film Manchester by the Sea unfolds like a great novel. What was the biggest challenge that you faced in editing it?
I think the biggest challenge for me, which might sound kind of boring, but when I read the script, I loved it so much, and I love Kenny, and I love all his work. So I think it was just like, how can I make sure that my contribution to this preserves the script version in the final product? Like, make sure that this movie is as good as it is when I first read it. And with all like the playing around in time and stuff, like I definitely felt both intimidated and really excited to get to work on it. Um,
Mhm.
but also, I didn't want to mess it up.
As I'm sure anyone who comes onto a script that good feels. Well, let's give some more context to this time jumping. So the story, obviously, there's the story of the movie, which is that Casey Affleck plays this man who returns to his hometown because he has to take care of his nephew, whose
Right.
father just died. And throughout the course of the film, we get flashbacks that give context to why he left in the first place and to his life with his deceased brother. So, talk a little bit about the challenges of playing around with what are, I guess, essentially two different narrative through lines.
Yeah, I think the first challenge was making sure the audience understood when we were jumping in time. And the second challenge editorially was like, do we use some sort of visual or audio cue or like some sort of rule or something or not? And I think the most like freeing part of the editorial process is when we decided that we didn't need to, and that we thought that the audience was smart enough to get it. And if they were locked into the movie, even if they didn't get it, it would be fun trying to figure it out. And so once we threw all those ideas out the window and just cut from the past to the present when it felt like emotionally accurate and honest, the movie kind of just locked in and really felt like it was working like it did in the script, and not worrying about, is this confusing? Are people going to get it? Do we need to always cut from Lee's face or something? Like it was just like there are two movies playing at the same time. We're not cutting to like moments, they're scenes. And I think people do really get it. Like, and that makes me feel satisfied to know that it worked.
Right, it does work, and it works as you know as a complete narrative. Or
Yeah.
there's a siren going by me. Um, so take us through the editorial process. You start from the script.
Yeah, like I got hired onto the project, and then a little bit late, so I didn't actually get to meet Kenny in person. I got hired on
Mm.
a phone interview. I was in LA at the time, so then I flew back. He flew to Boston. I started assembling the movie. He didn't really have much time to talk because it was a crazy shoot. They were trying to shoot a lot of into like dense scenes in a short amount of time.
Mm.
And then he showed up. We gave each other a big hug because we'd never met in person, but we were working on this incredible movie that was so emotionally draining and intense and satisfying. And then we just got to work, and it took, like one of our first challenges was that hospital hallway scene, getting the opening of the movie right. We just kind of started from the assembly from the beginning and worked our way through it. And then obviously, like I said, like like we played around a lot with like, how do we go to the past and the present? And that was always, the fire section was always a big, um, we did a lot of versions of that. So yeah, there was challenges along the way, but it was a great experience.
Right. You bring up the opening, and that kind of reminds me of one of the great qualities of the movie is that it allows things to unfold very naturally,
Yeah.
and it's not afraid to take its time in establishing things. I mean, the opening of the movie is you really get a sense of what Casey Affleck's character's life is like as this building custodian.
Right.
Um, so, talk a little bit about the I guess the pacing challenges of something like that.
Yeah, it's fun. When you like when I read the script, I remember going through it and just like ripping through the pages to be like, what is happening? Like, what is wrong with this person? And like riveted. And I thought it was so bold of Kenny to wait as long as he did in the script to
Mhm.
reveal the fire, or I shouldn't say fire, but like reveal what happened to Lee. But then, so when we were editing it, obviously it takes its time getting there, and people get nervous and are like, I don't know, maybe we should get to the phone call sooner, or maybe we should get to the the lawyer's office faster, and do we really need to see all of this? And there was that anxiety that people have working, producers, like everybody just like living in that space. Even me and Kenny would be like, I don't know, maybe we should. But at the end of the day, the movie always felt shorter when we lived in those moments. Because when I tried trying intercutting them or making it faster, getting to that call, getting into the hospital, and it's just like, it just felt it didn't feel as good. And it felt like we were cheapening Casey's amazing performance, and the audience wasn't as invested, and it became not as good a movie. So yeah, I think at the end of the day, sticking to the pacing of Kenny's script and sticking to the pacing that they established and not being afraid of it. And in fact, like really going for it was really fun and challenging at times,
Right. And I mean, it does create a sense of mystery around who this guy is, and
Yeah.
why he is so deeply hurt. I mean, it's almost like a mini climax in itself. I guess it's about, from my recollection of the film, about an hour into the movie, not to give anything away. But when you kind of understand some of the context of his past,
Right.
it's like this great mystery being revealed.
Right.
And then after that, I mean, it does really focus on the story of him and his nephew and what's going to happen between the two of them. So is it a concern to not have as many flashbacks in the second half of the film, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. There were definitely more flashbacks that we cut out that were filmed. So yeah, you're right. Like there was, at a certain point, you wanted to still like see the past, but also let the future take over, or like let the present take over more. And I don't even know if me and Kenny like consciously talked about that a lot, but it kind of just happened when we cut out those scenes. And yeah, it became less and less as the movie went on. And that was important because when those were in there, it did feel a little too crowded and overbearing, and it's a lot, So it was that fine balance of asking people to live in this grief and live in this space and understand this, and like, but also like Lucas was a really, Lucas and Casey's energy and their connection was so important to a relief from that grief for both Lee and the audience, so yeah, make sure that we were really conscious of all of that as we were going.
Right. I mean, it almost unfolds like I mean, Lonergan comes from theater, so
Yeah.
I don't think it would be bad for me to say that it unfolds almost like two acts of a play.
Yeah.
We talk about this film and it seems very grim, but there is a lot of human comedy in it as well,
Yeah.
Not slapstick by any means, but humor that comes from the characters and from some of their situations, finding the appropriate tone in some of those moments. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's funny. I was like, I feel like there's so many amazing things about Kenny, but one of the things I love about him is the fact that he's not afraid of those two things. And also those two things like really like intertwined. And like, so for example, at the end of that halfway point you're talking about, when Lee's coming out of the lawyer's office and everyone is just kind of left, devastated. And then Lucas is kind of like, what, are we going to the orphanage? And he's like, shut up, shut the fuck up. And everyone laughs. And it's just so satisfying. And it's like, you can feel people like laughing through their tears. And it's like, it was just so great to work on a movie where the director wasn't afraid of that. It's like Kenny always says this, like comedy and tragedy are one and the same. And so I feel like it was really great to be able to make the funny moments funny and not worry about like, would Lee and Lucas be joking about Lee hooking up with Sandy's mom outside of her house because this horrible thing happened to Lee, and can he joke? It's like, yeah, of course he can, and so it just felt so honest, and those moments were so fun.
Mm-hmm. The movie also has a wonderful sense of place as well. This Massachusetts fishing town. So can you talk a little bit about your role in helping establish that sense of place for the film?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that I would say is Kenny and his, like a theme in all of his movies. You Can Count on Me and Margaret is just like both of those movies. It's so much about New York and Margaret. It's so much about that town, and I think it's in Massachusetts too. I don't remember, but
I can't remember.
So yeah, Kenny made a point to make sure we had all that footage. He got all that stuff. It's in the script. It's in the, and I think yeah, and it was just when is the right moment? When is it too much? When are we doing it so much that it's taking the audience out of it? So that fine line of like keeping everyone engaged, but also letting people in this world. I think the ocean and then working on their boat in the ocean is a really big thing for Kenny. And I know that that was really important. Because I think Kenny like both loves small human stories and also likes to put them in the context of like, we're in this world where like there's horrible things going on every second of every day, more, and like everything is worse and better and it's all relative. And so I think that's what's really beautiful about Kenny's movies. And I think like the ocean and the town and all that stuff kind of helps you feel that way. So the story, you're able to like get into the story more knowing that the person telling you the story acknowledges that. Like this is pain that we can all relate to, you know?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it makes it very specific, but very universal at the same time, if that makes any sense.
Without beating you over the head with it, which I love about it.
Right. Right. So in every movie, I guess there's moments that you have to lose that are really great. Were there any great scenes in this film that you had to cut out just because of pacing, or they didn't really contribute to the overarching story?
No, it's funny. With Kenny, I really believe like he's so not like, no, anything there's no scene that's it. No, there have been scenes in movies that I've edited before, but I would honestly say in this movie, there's not a scene that I was sad to lose. Like all the scenes were so good. And there wasn't a scene that we had to cut that we both loved. There really wasn't.
So you've worked on, throughout your career, you've worked on a lot of really character-based dramas and comedies, and you've done a lot of work with Noah Baumbach. What attracts you to those kinds of intimate films as opposed to cutting big action spectaculars or sci-fi or things like that?
Right. I think I really enjoy working with, I want to say writer directors, but obviously like I'm not like I've just been really lucky to work with Noah and Kenny because they're just both so all in their movies. And I'm the type of person that like I like to get obsessive. I'm like a little OCD. I like to like explore every option, but also like know when to stop. And I feel like Noah and Kenny are both really like, they like in the editing room, they care so much about that process and respect it so much and are willing to spend so much time. And I've been really lucky to work with people like that. I know other movies for schedule reasons and whatever, things are rushed. And I've actually been really lucky to work with two people that have control over their own final cut. So they decide when to stop. So yeah, I think I just am attracted to that kind of personality of just like, we're not stopping till this is the best it can be. And not, you know, like editing a scene 30 times and going back to the second cut because that was the best cut, but you got to the 30th cut because you needed to know the second cut was good. And I like that. And I like that Noah and Kenny are up for that. And it's hard work, but it's satisfying. And yeah, I guess I've just been kind of attracted to that kind of project, that personality. But I wouldn't be opposed to working on an action movie or sci-fi movie if it was a similar, if someone was like that, you know. Like I just like interesting, challenging stuff that, and doing it with people that are just engaged, you know.
Right. And they say that all good editing is essentially invisible. What would you point to in this film as a specific example of good editing that you did?
Right. That's a hard question. It's funny, editing is hard to talk about in general. Like I've never done these interviews before, and I'm always just like, it's such a boring thing to talk about because it's such it's such a hard thing to articulate. It's not like a physical thing, like being a DP or like a costume designer, production designer. It's like, I just spent 8 months with these people in a room and like crazy stuff happens. And like, I mean, yeah, there's some like, anyway, it's just hard to articulate. But like a scene, I would say, like, I feel like when Lee runs into Randy, I'm really proud of that scene because we actually only cut like one version of that. And we tried, and it really just like knocked people out. And I remember, like, again, I'm the type of person that is like always looking to improve things. And I remember I tried to like improve it, and then we screened it again, and everyone was like, no, you need to go back to that other version. Like, you know, and it was kind of satisfying that I was able like to get to that there was something about that footage and those performances that were so incredible. And I just remember that day, I even cried when I got those dailies, and I've never cried at dailies before. It doesn't make any sense. I know this is fake, but they were so good. And I just like cut it together, and Kenny and I tweaked it a little bit, but it was just like, it just kind of happened, and it was great. And I feel really proud of that scene. I don't know, that's one of my favorite scenes in the movie. I also love, I mean, I didn't do much work on it, but I guess I made the decision not to, which is the scene where Casey confesses what he did to the police. Like, that was such an amazing performance, and it was just like it didn't need any editing. And I just like that whole sequence in the police station scene, it was just like less is more, you know? And so, and I actually did have so much coverage in that section, and it was just like making sure I don't let people see me, because this is all about Casey and Lee and this heartbreaking performance and situation.
Well, those are both beautiful scenes and very indicative of the power of the film, and very well edited, I should say.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Jennifer, thank you so much, and congratulations on the film. Pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, have a good one. Bye.